Thank you. I've been working in the realm of youth leadership for over 10 years, running an organisation called SC1 United. We're based in the Royal Festival Hall, which sounds absolutely fantastic, but we started off on 2 hot desks above a shop, and from that starting point over 10 years ago, we've grown to having 12 staff, working with over 1,000 young people from Lambeth and Southwark every year, and we have about 60 volunteers. Now, youth leadership is a term that's bandied around quite a lot, and I think it's taken quite lightly. I recently did a presentation last year where I was asked, what do you think of youth leadership at SC1 United? And 3 words came to mind. I said, we're ambitious, we're greedy, and we're high risk. And someone said to me, you speak like a venture capitalist, you speak like a business person, you don't speak as though you're talking about youth work. But I think youth work could be really different. I don't think it is so much about having low aspiration and doing targeted work. Youth leadership to me is about involving young people and having them at the centre of all the decision making that you do in an organisation. It's about allowing young people to invest their time and energy to set things up for themselves and having ownership over what they do. And what I found is that young people really take pride in their work. I think if you give them a lot of responsibility, they want to take it. I think we patronise young people and we infantilise them. I think we, don't allow them to show us what they can do. So on the other side, what is youth leadership not? It's not tokenistic, and it's certainly not easy. I think quite a few organisations think it's fine to give young people choices like, what would you like to have in your tuck shop? Would you like to go to Thorpe Park or would you like to go to Alton Towers? We frame these decision-making processes and just give very rudimentary choices to young people. We're not asking young people to set the budget for the next year for the whole organisation. We're not allowing young people to recruit their own staff. But at SC1 United, we do allow that to happen. I had the misfortune to be interviewed by 11 young people on the most horrific experience of my life. And they asked a lot of personal questions, and they kept telling me it's really important that we get the right person to do our work and to support us. And fortunately, I've been with the organisation for over 10 years, and I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's been a learning curve for me and a huge journey for us as an organisation, the youth workers, the volunteers, the young people, the trustees. I think as well, sometimes we can abuse that term youth leadership for a tick boxing exercise. It looks good, doesn't it, when you can kind of show your funders lots of bits of paper saying, look, all the young people have ticked that they want to do this next year. And you can spend 5 minutes handing out a little questionnaire, bring it all back in and putting it in a neat folder and just kind of doing very easy bits of work with young people like that. I find that a bit abusive, really, and a bit, again, patronising. I think to really engage young people, you need them to be trustees and directors on your board. They need to be sitting at the top management level. They also need to be part of your staff team. We have youth workers that came to us at the age of 12, they're now 22, and they're now managing projects as staff. The question I'd ask you is, would you let a 12-year-old drive your car? I suppose it depends whether you think your car is worth a lot and whether you treasure your car. How do you think they'll cope with the gears and the clutch, would they treat it as well as you do? I think a 12-year-old could drive a car as long as they had enough support, they had enough driving lessons, and in an emergency situation, if it was life or death, you'd rather that a 12-year-old drove the car than not. At SC1 United, when we first set up, the funders gave a group of 8 young people aged between 12 and 16 £230,000. Now, I know that's really abnormal. It's a very, very huge amount of money to give into the hands of young people, but it was set with calculated risk, and the young people knew that they had to work within a framework and that they knew what they could do and what they couldn't do. And once they had the framework, they then had the freedom to operate within it. And I think sometimes we underestimate the talents of young people and their natural abilities, and we don't give them all the information they need to have that empowerment. So knowledge is power. If young people have the knowledge, they have the power to do more with that knowledge. The other thing at SC1 United is that we really believe that young people and youth workers and everybody who's engaged needs to be able to lead their own life before they lead others. We don't set unrealistic expectations that a young person can walk in through the door and then suddenly start running a project. you do have to ensure that young people have the ability to make informed decisions and be able to think critically and to actually evaluate what's going on and know all the ins and outs. I think sometimes it's hard enough for adults to navigate themselves around being a trustee, for example, on a board. So we do make a huge effort to have inclusive, accessible training and to have a lot of our information being very transparent and written in plain English without the jargon. And if you don't deal with the things that involve the whole of a young person, you can't expect them to be leading others. So some young people we work with, they might have been with SC1 United for 8 years before they've actually started volunteering, because they've had a lot of complex issues and they've come from a very different starting point. But we never say, no, you can't do that. We always say how. We engage young people right the way through the organisation. I always think that organisations have a brain, a heart, a soul. It's like a body. And we make sure that communication goes all the way through the spine so that young people know what's going on at the top and what's going on the delivery side, on the streets. We have young people in every single area of our organisation. And sometimes the young people who are trustees have to have some very difficult conversations with young people who are participants. Sometimes the agendas can be quite difficult to navigate, but it is worth it. It's worth putting the effort in. So what are the rewards of having a white knuckle ride? I believe that I've had quite a journey over the past 10 years, and sometimes it's been really hairy. There's been tears of joy, but also tears of complete pain. It's very difficult to tell a group of young people who've been fundraising for 2 years, you still haven't got enough money, you're not going to Cuba. But it's a learning process, and I think you do have to learn through the hard times. You have to learn from mistakes. And it's only when you give young people responsibility that they're going to really understand what goes on behind the scenes of youth work and all the hard work that goes with the fundraising, the project management, sticking to policies, and having to kind of juggle lots of things in the background just so that young people can have participatory experiences. I've learned a lot as an individual. Sometimes I've been biting my knuckles literally when you say, okay, what would you like to do with your budget over the next 3 or 4 months? And a group of young people say, I think it would be great if we have a talent showcase. You're like, great, where would you like to do that? We want the Old Vic, not just the community theatre around the corner. We want the Old Vic. And you're kind of like, oh, wow, this is going to be really hard. But we got the Old Vic, but it's just a lot of hard work. And people do realise that actually you put in and then you get out. And they learn that quite quickly. So I can do so much. But if the groups of young people that come up with their project ideas don't put any volunteer hours behind it, it's just simply not going to happen. And I think that teaches young people a lot of life skills. I think when young people are the voice and the face of the organisation, they attract other young people. They speak the right language. I think by having them at the front of the organisation, you have a much higher success rate. We do have projects where we encourage young offenders to be young leaders. And we've had a 97% success rate of 36 offenders not reoffending for 2 years. That's more than 3 times higher than the UK average. So I think we're onto something here. The other thing I've loved watching is young people that come to us with very little confidence, who have been stereotyped and had a really difficult life, flourishing and becoming really special community leaders. And young people who would never have thought of going to university, actually having the aspiration and putting in all the hard work to coming out with top degrees and wanting to give back. And the thing that I'm really excited about is watching some of those young adults become huge leaders in our community and really changing the face of youth work. I hope that's inspired you. Thank you for listening.